Hello. So we are continuing our previous conversation with the wonderful Monte and Scott. We actually got a little cut off on our time in the last episode, but that is okay. We were just getting into some juice. So I'm going to have Ashley start off with this amazing question posing to, our guests, Scott and Monte. So Ashley, take it away.
Yes. So what I wanted to ask the both of you, because you both said something that stuck out to me. Scott, you really hit on advocacy and advocating for yourself. And Monte, you talked about accountability. And so I just want to know, how do you have those conversations when you feel as though, and Scott, in your case, my talents are not being utilized? I have more to offer. I have more to give. Monte, when you're saying I have a large part in this, in the success of our children, right? I have some accountability in this classroom. How do you guys have those conversations? How do you advocate for yourself and hold yourself accountable in those positions?
Okay. So, so for me, like, accountability has it wasn't big for me back then, like I would try to sit down with the teachers, whatever teacher I was working with, to let them know what was bothering me. And, us being paras, me being a para, I felt like sometimes my feelings and opinions weren't respected. They look at us as being like the little people of the school. And, I just started to realize that I really need to start speaking up for myself, because there were things and situations that I weren't comfortable with certain teachers who I was working with. And, try to go talk to the principal, and it would just almost seem like my feelings was being brushed under the rug at times. And like even right now, as I'm speaking about it, it just kind of
Brings up that same emotion.
Brings back a lot of like bad memories at times. And I'm just like, if I felt that way at times, no telling how many other parents have felt like that, even right now to this day, because we are all here to work with, kids, support students. And if we're not respecting each other as educators, how can we, provide that same feeling with the kids? And so, so accountability was really big for me, because there was times where I'm like, I knew that I had to step up and not only hold myself accountable for what I did, or said, and I feel like the teachers should have been doing it too. And at times that wasn't happening.
I think for me, there were definite times when teachers would sort of ask, like, is this something you could do? And I'd be like, well, I can figure it out. We can get this going. For the teachers that didn't know, or that I felt weren't utilizing me, or weren't, maybe just didn't know, there were definitely times when I felt just sort of disrespected, but I would do my best to sort of say, like, would it help you if I did this? Would it help you if, if I took this group and did that? Or, here's what I've done in the past. You can talk to the other teachers that I've worked with. Maybe that's something that would work with you. Maybe that's something that would help. What it came down to eventually was I had a group of teachers that I was working with, one of whom I ran into in public with some friends, and I was like, hey, this is so-and-so, and, we work together. And she corrected and said, no, he works for me. And that was the, like,
look, everybody.
Okay. Technically sort of correct, but wow, okay. And that, along with some other things, were sort of like, maybe I need to sort of go elsewhere. Maybe this isn't going to change sort of here in the building. Maybe just the personalities, this isn't going to kind of work out. So when working with students, I was always trying to, work with, my goal was for those students to be successful and for them to get through their day, learn what they had to learn, and to know that there was somebody in the building who cared about them and who saw them. And, when that became less and less possible to do, in spite of what I was offering and trying to advocate for, then inevitably that meant that I switched roles and became an itinerant paraprofessional going to a bunch of different schools. So.
Right. Because that's like what we're all here to do, right? It's all for this, we do it all for the kids, right? But there just seems to be this power dynamic that we all keep coming back to. And I want to ask, and anyone can jump in here, what do you think needs to happen for a shift to recognize how important everyone is in this mission for student success? Like, Monte, you were relied on, whether or not you felt respected, you were someone that they relied on. Scott, like, you were also someone, whether it be during lunch or when you were doing those assessments, like that was someone that you were needed. And Ashley, I know that you were an imperative part in the classroom, especially over when you're doing AN, right? So what do you think needs to happen for a shift to be made?
I mean, you've heard me say this before, Kate, the village. Understanding that we are all a village and that one does not exist without the other. So I feel like being able to see each other as a part of, whether you say family, whether you say village, whether you say, however you want to say it, but understanding that I am a part of you, you are a part of me. And in order for this thing, this common goal to work, we have to see each other as both being very imperative parts of this process. Until that happens, there will always be that power dynamic, because you have to continue to prove that I'm here, you're here, I'm here, you're here. You know what I'm saying? The village is what I think.
And I think we've had some conversations with the restorative approaches people and some of that group. And one of the ideas that they mentioned to me, and once they did, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, is the idea of power over. So working in buildings where it was like the dynamic was power over. So the principal would have power over the teachers, and the teachers would have power over the paraprofessionals and the students. And that just seemed to sort of cascade down. But switching to more of like a power with and sort of that sharing of the decision making and ideas involves, and it requires those in power kind of setting their power aside and setting that authority aside. And for people that have worked really hard to sort of get that power and authority, there's kind of a hesitance to set that aside. That to me is the biggest stumbling block, is trying to get folks to agree to set aside their sort of power and authority and their privilege and kind of share that with people. So
I agree with
what's
you guys.
going on right now.
I definitely agree with you guys, because how do you get a teacher who don't see you as a human being, who don't see you as a person who is there for students? How do you get a teacher to see you as being their equal? How does that happen? And for me, and you come across it from time to time, even like right now with the positions that we're in, you come across that. But I think it starts, higher, like you're more than just a para, and I've always told paras when I go into the schools, they say, oh, I'm just a para. No, you're more than, you have relationships with these kids. You know some of the kids better than their own teachers know these kids. So you're more than just a para. And I feel like it has been embedded in these people's heads so badly, like that it's almost like a self-esteem issue. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I'm just a para. You know, like I feel like they have not been given leadership roles.
Right.
You know, it's okay for you to walk the kids to the lunchroom. It's okay for you to watch them on the playground, but you're not a leader.
Right.
You know, but it has to start somewhere. You know, it has to start somewhere, because the parents, I feel like their self-esteem needs to be uplifted. You know, almost like a training where how can we uplift your self-esteem to make you feel like you're more than just who you think you are. You know, it's important. It's important. You guys are important. You're an important piece of this whole educational, you know, process. Like, you're important.
Right.
What I've told paraprofessionals in buildings while working with them is like, I don't know if you all are aware, but I guarantee you there's one or more kids in this building that look forward to seeing you every day. They
Right.
are holding like a thought. They're holding a bit of conversation. They are waiting to see you, to tell you something, to ask you
Right.
something, to do something. Their day would not be complete if you were not here.
Right.
So you may not even know that kid, but you are their person in the building, and they're like, oh, I can't wait to speak with Ms. Monte. I really want to, like, and they're just dying to come up and ask you that question, to meet you, to see you. And I think the paraprofessionals in the building may not get that sense. They may not sort of see that because they've been, you know, treated poorly at times. I was told in a meeting, we were sitting around just problem solving, and I think the idea I was suggesting was, what if we pre-taught a little bit of the lesson to this particular student so he had one answer right, because we worked with him and he knew one answer. And the teacher that I was working with was like, let me clarify though, you're just a paraprofessional though, right? Okay. And then she moved on to something else, and I was like, but the idea though was right. And so that sort of, that kind of treatment, that sort of kind of callous disregard for coworkers definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. So
well, it sounds like there's a mindset shift needed on two different levels, right? Monte, you're talking about, you know, building these people up, right? But then it's like, okay, your self-esteem and that confidence can only go so far if you're not viewed as someone that's valuable. And
Right.
you know, you can get paid however much money, right, in any profession, but if you don't feel valued, it's not worth it.
Exactly.
Ashley, I feel like there's been a lot of light bulbs going off. Do you have anything to add about this?
I ditto everything. Like it is the truth. And even as you were saying, Monte, with the leadership roles, and I think about my own journey, and when I actually was able to when I actually was like, I got something to offer. Like, I am somebody. I mean, you know, like when I actually felt like that was when I had the opportunity, and it was because I had to, when I had the opportunity to have a leadership role within the classroom. And once that happened, there was no, it had to be seen. What I had to offer had to be seen, but that's not an opportunity that everybody has, right? But when you said that, that's what came up for me. Is I remember when I finally was able to stand in what my power was, what my truth was, what my purpose was, what my passion was when I knew I could do this. I knew that I could do this, and I could see by the reactions around me that I was having an impact, and I'm not just making this up in my head, right? So I agree 100%. And Kate, even like what you were saying, that it's two ways, because I can think that I'm just the bomb.com, but if the powers that be, you know, are still making sure that I do not exceed past a certain level, then now the conversation needs to go higher. And now the fight needs to go a little bit higher. And back to that village thing is, how do we support in that? How can we support in that? How can we push this message? How can we press this issue and say, it's not okay, and we need to be more oh, I cannot find the word that will be adequate enough for what I'm trying to say. But we need to give the best of what these kids have. And by that, I mean the parents, because like you said, these are people who they are looking for every single, Miss, guess what I watched last night? Miss, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Mister, guess what happened? This, I bet you can't do, you know, like they are looking to have that interaction because it's feeding something inside of them. And we are doing a disservice to the children when we are not allowing or being okay with the system that keeps paras as just a para, because I know what it feels like to be just a para, to say I'm just this. And if I say it as a para, then it's gonna overflow into other places in my life, right? So it's like we are not only hindering them within the schools, but once I adapt that mindset, it now hinders my life. That's not okay, right? Because now I'm not showing up whole. When I'm not showing up whole, I'm not good for the kids. So I'm hindering the kids once again. So it does this. You're right. It does this. So ditto.
And you know, it's almost like, and the word paraprofessional is perfectly fine, but it's almost like change it to co-teacher.
Right.
They're co-teachers. That's basically what they are.
They are.
You have a lead teacher and then you have a co-teacher. Exactly. You know, is that are they going to get the respect that they deserve?
Yeah.
You know, because they are teachers. You know what I'm saying? Like I've known paras to come up with lesson plans. I've known paras to work one-on-one with students.
To be the point of contact for families. The only person that the family trusts.
Right.
Like, you know, playing key roles in these kids' lives.
Right.
But isn't it interesting? Like, what is there like some fear behind it? Because God forbid we give these paraprofessionals those opportunities and those ways to blossom. Wait, does that mean they're going to be better than me?
Right.
Teacher or other professionals in the building? No, we've got to keep them down here so they don't know their greatness. Like this is just like this weird kind of abstract thing going on kind of behind closed doors that's very similar to what's going on in the world outside. It's just these parallels I can't help but not mention. And so I don't know. I think everyone's onto something here, you know.
I think it's the human condition. Like, I think that's the human condition. Because if I do this somewhere, I do it everywhere. It's the same way when a kid can tell me no and have a valid reason, but I feel disrespected because I'm the teacher and I have to keep that power, or I'm the adult, right? I'm the grown up here. You don't talk. And because I have to keep that, I can't see you for what you are. I can't see you as a human. I can't see you as a person, right? And it's the same thing. If I have to hold, like, Scott, I think it was you who said, if I've worked this hard to get to this position, it is very scary for me to relinquish some of this power and say, you know what, no matter how hard I worked, me and you are the same. We're the same, or me and you, maybe we're different. We have different things to offer, but we are equally important. Right. We're equally important.
With people.
And exactly, we are just people. And I think that's, it's something about humans. I don't know. I don't know if it's competition. I can't call it competition. I don't know what it is, but.
And that's why I respect teachers who used to be paras.
Right.
You know, how can you not know what a paraprofessional role is if you've never been in that position before?
Right.
You know, like I just think it's just so important to be in that position to understand what their role is, what they do. Like paraprofessional fight for kids, just like the teachers, just like the principals, just like everybody else in the building, you know. And it's so important to treat them as equal.
Exactly.
It's so important.
Right. Unless, you know, it's students that are at risk. If we don't do that, it's the students that suffer at the end of the day. Scott, did you have anything to share? It seemed like you were itching to say something.
I am, but I this again is the whole soapbox thing that I will get on, so I will just try. But the idea of sort of the classism and the when Monte, you were talking about teachers that were paraprofessionals that then become teachers. I've definitely worked with some that remember the struggle, that remember what it was like, and knew enough to sort of ask and be like, what are your strengths? What would you like to do? And what do you want to learn while you're here? And would ask those sort of questions. But I've also worked with teachers that sort of felt now that I've been given this authority, it is now my job, my right, my whatever, to make sure that you know your place, and that they would work extra hard to remind the paraprofessionals, I am now better than you because I have this piece of paper, because I have this, and because I've been given that title. And for me, those who were paraprofessionals, who then became teachers, classroom teachers, that then sort of became some of the fiercest advocates for that class system of, you now owe me respect, you now owe me this because I have this. Those were some of the teachers that I had the most sort of conflict with. And yeah, they're fighting for that system. I think they got out of being sort of oppressed by the system. They escaped that, and now they want to defend that sort of escape from that system. So,
which is absolutely crazy, I mean, with me finishing up school and will be teaching soon, I would want whoever is paired up with me in my classroom, in our classroom, we're going to be doing the same exact thing. I'm checking IEPs, you're checking IEPs too. You're disciplined, I'm disciplined. I'm teaching math, you're teaching science. I don't, regardless of what degree you have, regardless of what your background is, we are all in this together to work with these kids to make sure they're successful. That's what's important. And what's important for the kids to see, that even the adults can get along and work side by side to support them when they need it the most.
And I think that right there is another important piece, is working through this, because the kids definitely see it. Mm-hmm. And if the kids see that the paraprofessionals are disrespected, then when it comes time that, hey, like I'm talking to this kid out in the hall and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's just like, you're not a teacher. You don't get to tell me what. I'm like, but I am here to work with you, and this is what I am. And so I think again, it does a disservice to the students. And, when they're definitely watching for, how adults treat other adults. And even on the teacher level, if there's a teacher that is disrespected by another teacher, the kids pick up on that, and they're definitely looking for those gaps. And yeah, they're going to play to that. So, presenting that united front, treating everyone equally, it's just the better way to go.
Just talk about teaching them how to treat people. It's always a lesson.
Right.
It's always a lesson, no matter what we do, whether we're intentionally teaching or not. We're teaching.
Right, because it's almost like, Scott, what you're saying. It's almost like when a child go home and see the mom and the dad going back and forth and not respecting each other. And usually that behavior that the kids see, they pick it up, and what happens? They bring it back to the school. I mean, kids are like sponges. They pick up everything, and so they pick up on those relationships between teachers, between adults. They see it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they sure do. And I'm gonna wrap us up here on that note. We covered a lot today, a lot of intense, really systemic issues that we covered. And I want to thank you all so much for engaging in this conversation. Monte, Scott, Ashley, thank you all for being so vulnerable with us today. Clearly we have some work to do, and I really hope that as the behavior team that we will be able to have an impact. And everyone, just see each other as people, please. Okay. let's start there. Let's all get together and start there. Yes. So thank you so much. We'll see you next time. This is WWBTD. Bye.
Bye.